Yay, peace, beautiful beings. Welcome back to Ascension Books and Conversations. My name is Sharice Lovely, and I am back with another few chapters. We are here to finish out a section that I have taken way too long to get into. But before we get into that, I did want to kind of respond to a comment that I received because this is a communal space. I really do love to respond to everyone's comments and at least acknowledge what has been said here, because I appreciate you even being here and sharing your feedback and your perspective. So I just wanted to highlight a comment that I had on a video. It was my child, so it was chapter 16 and 20. And this little drop in, if this is your first time, the book that we're reading is the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. And I leave in the description box all of the chapters based on the time I went live and read them, so that you can go back and keep up with wherever you're at. And so you can find the video I'm talking about. That's why I pointed down. But the comment is from Andre Never Die 21. And I won't repeat everything they said, but they pretty much shared that if on the path of truth and the path of religion, okay, so there's a distinction between the path of truth and the path of religion. And when we're seeking the truth, we make it in the way of thinking that none of them are true, therefore all of them are legit. And then they went on to say that Christianity, as of today, doesn't represent Christ, but Christ is still the only way to get to the Most High God, and is the only way to the Creator, and his name being Jehovah God. So I definitely, again, appreciate you sharing that. I wanted to just kind of start this video to better explain collective light and where we come from in terms of the perspective that we have when we're entering into these books and entering into these spaces. Because pretty much I share in the description how we come from the omnist perspective, and omnist is it can be considered a religion, but it's really just having the belief in all religions and being able to see the truth in all of them. And so going based on your comment, it's not that I don't think that none of them are true. I think that they all have truth in them. So they do collide and they do clash, but I do believe that, coming from an omnist perspective, that all religions had at a time their own connection to the Most High God. And they, in their cultures, created names and labels, things that we do all the time with things in order for humans to understand where we are and where we come from, to understand time and, things that happen in history, to understand, just what occurred in those spaces. And I do believe that all religions were written based on someone's experience in this earth plane, and they had a connection to Source, the Most High God. Now, I do believe that there are deities and beings that are beneath God that can have an ego, just like people do, and have this ego of having godly power. And I do believe that God's source is in everything. So even if you practice a certain religion, although it may be something that can stray you from your actual direct line to source, because that's pretty much what Christ came down to share with us, especially in the King James Bible, was like, we don't have to go through a priest or a preacher in order to have that connection to source. We have that connection directly to source. And so, being that there's so many different people, different, just different essences of source here living, I do believe that God is in everything. However, there are things that we can do in this life that stray us away from our original intent and purpose here, that is in line with our connection to source. So I do think it's possible for us to stray away, and some religions can do that for certain people. But I think that the traditions and the things that are learned, they all kind of, in a way, say the same things about experience and the human soul and the human connection to God, but in their own ways of being able to accept it here in reality, and then share it with our other human beings in a way that we can better come together in harmony. And so, from an Omnis perspective, I really hope that we can create a space where all of those religions can come together and we create more of a oneness, more of a harmonious space where everybody, like literally everybody, is included. And I know that's sometimes people can believe that to be naive, or some people can believe that to be unrealistic. However, I believe that's part of my connection to source, and my path and purpose here is to help in any way bring back that oneness and harmony that is possible for not just all human beings, but literally all beings here in this plane of existence. So that's a little bit more about collective light and why we're even here today. So I hope that if that why connects with you, that you feel called to subscribe, or that you at least stick around and read the book for yourself and tune into whatever revelations come to you. Because again, you have that direct line to source, and source will always answer and meet you where you're at. So there's that. And if it led you to being here with me, I'm so grateful and would love to hear your experiences, just even with spirituality and religion in general. What is it? What's your name again? Andre never died 21. Like, what is your experience in religion? What is it that you grew up believing, and what is it that called you to share that belief? I would love to just hear your perspective, your experiences, your story. So again, thank you for sharing. So we're gonna go ahead and dive back into the book. I also have to go back and put the chapters for y'all. It's been some time, so I need to really just catch up and be consistent, but we're working on it. Okay. So we're going to start today in chapter 68. So you can go ahead and click the PDF, or if you've got yourself your own little in-hand book, which I kind of wish I had, but it's okay. Pull it out and come to chapter 68. And feel free to grab anything you need, any drinks. Y'all, it's 3:30 in the afternoon, and I was craving coffee. And so we're going to be drinking some coffee because I need it. We're going to stay up and we're going to read, and we're going to be in this together. And I'm already 10 minutes in this video, so thank you if you're still here. Okay. So together we are in chapter 68. Jesus speaks to the people in Bethany, tells them how to be pure in heart, goes to Jerusalem and in the temple reads from a prophetic book, goes to Nazareth. The news soon spread abroad that Jesus, King of Israel, had come to Bethany, and all the people of the town came forth to greet the king. And Jesus, standing in the midst of them, exclaimed, "Behold, indeed the king has come, but Jesus is not king. The kingdom truly is at hand, but men can see it not with carnal eyes. They cannot see the king upon the throne. This is the kingdom of the soul. Its throne is not an earthly throne. Its king is not a man. When human kings found kingdoms here, they conquer other kings by force of arms. One kingdom rises on the ruins of another one. But when our Father God sets up the kingdom of the soul, he pours his blessings forth, like rain upon the thrones of earthly kings who rule in righteousness. It is not rule that God would overthrow. His sword is raised against injustice, wantonness, and crime. Now, while the kings of Rome do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with their God, the benediction of the triune God will rest upon them all. They need not fear a messenger whom God sends forth to earth. I am not sent to sit upon a throne to rule as Caesar rules. And you may tell the ruler of the Jews that I am not a claimant for his throne. Men call me Christ. And God has recognized the name, but Christ is not a man. The Christ is universal love, and love is king. This Jesus is but man who has been fitted by temptations overcome, by trials multiform, to be the temple through which Christ can manifest to men. Then hear you men of Israel, hear. Look not upon the flesh, it is not king. Look to the Christ within, who shall be formed in every one of you, as he is formed in me. When you have purified your hearts by faith, the king will enter in, and you will see his face. And then the people asked, What must we do that we may make our bodies fit abiding places for the king? And Jesus said, Whatever tends to purity in thought and word and deed will cleanse the temple of the flesh. There are no rules that can apply to all, for men are specialists in sin. Each has his own besetting sin, and each must study for himself how he can best transmute his tendency to evil things to that of righteousness and love. Until men reach the higher plane and get away from selfishness, this rule will give the best results. Do unto other men what you would have them do to you. And many of the people said, We know that Jesus is the Christ, the King who was to come, and blessed be his name. Now Jesus and his 6 disciples turned their faces toward Jerusalem, and many people followed them. But Matthew, son of Alphaeus, ran on before, and when he reached Jerusalem, he said, Behold, the Christines come. The multitudes came forth to see the king. But Jesus did not speak to anyone until he reached the temple court, and then he opened up a book and read, Behold, I send my messenger, and he will pave the way, and Christ, for whom you wait, will come unto his temple unannounced. Behold, for he will come, says God, the Lord of hosts. And then he closed the book. He said no more. He left the temple halls, and with his 6 disciples went his way to Nazareth. And they abode with Mary, Jesus' mother, and her sister, Miriam. Chapter 68. I think I say this a lot, but I like this chapter. Okay. I like this chapter because of how he speaks in verse. Let me find it. When they ask, okay, so pretty much in verse 14, he just finished saying that Jesus is not man. The Christ is not man. The Christ is universal love, and love is the king. So these people were looking for a fleshly king, one that they were used to, like Caesar, who ruled over them. Jesus said, No, I'm not even the king. Christ is the king, and Christ is universal love. And then he goes on to say that Jesus is a man who has been fitted by temptations overcome, by trials multiform, to be the temple through which Christ can manifest to men. Jesus is talking about himself there, how he overcame all temptations. He still went through those temptations, but he overcame them so that he could be the vessel for Christ to be made here. Then they asked in verse 13, how do we make our bodies enough for that? Oh, I'm sorry. That's verse. Oh my gosh. This is why this screen. I'm sorry, y'all. In verse 13, he says, look to the Christ within. When you have purified your hearts by faith, that's when they'll come. And then in verse 15, they ask, but how do we make ourselves vessels of the same Christ energy? And he responds, verse 16, whatever tends to purity in thought and word and deed will cleanse the temple of the flesh. And I love that he said that, because a lot of people like to say this is good and this is bad. A lot of people like to embrace this world of duality and pretty much say this is sinful and this is not sinful. This is good, this is bad. And create so much duality that we've learned over time in humanity that our world is not black and white like that. Not really, not here. Maybe in other worlds, but not here. And so he says that whatever it is that brings you into purity of thought and deed, because every individual has their own temptations. All men have to, verse 18, study himself, herself, how they can best transmute the tendency to evil things to that of righteousness and love. So yes, your, sorry. Pause. Because y'all, you know why I'm pausing, I'll be honest. It's because I forget people's names so bad. Andre. So yes, you're right. Okay. Christ is a path to God, the Most High God. And we have to study ourselves in order to know how to become pure, because each of us has our own impurities in our own journeys here. So yeah, and the truth will always let you know what those things are. And we've kind of learned over time too that a lot of those same things do tend to be what brings impurity into our lives. But again, we are also different individuals. So we do have to study ourselves in order to do that. Okay. I don't want to ramble, but I do love that. And I just wanted to get into that. Okay. Chapter 69. I'm sorry. I'm over here scrolling too much. Chapter 69. Jesus and the ruler of the synagogue of Nazareth. Jesus teaches not in public, and the people are amazed. Next day, as Peter walked about in Nazareth, he met the ruler of the synagogue, who asked, "Who is this Jesus lately come to Nazareth?" And Peter said, "This Jesus is the Christ of whom our prophets wrote. He is the King of Israel. His mother Mary lives on Marian Way." The ruler said, "Tell him to come up to the synagogue, for I would hear his plea." And Peter ran and told to Jesus what the ruler said, but Jesus answered not. He went out to the synagogue. Then in the evening time the ruler came up Marmion Way. And in the home of Mary found he Jesus and his mother all alone. And when the ruler asked for proof of his messiahship and why he went not to the synagogue when he was bidden, Jesus said, I am not slave to any man. I am not called unto this ministry by priest. It is not mine to answer when men call. I come the Christ of God. I answer unto God alone. Who gave you right to ask for proof of my messiahship? My proof lies in my words and works, and so if you will follow me, you will not lack for proof. And then the ruler went his way. He asked himself, what manner of a man is this to disregard the ruler of the synagogue? The people of the town came out in throngs to see the Christ and hear him speak. But Jesus said, a prophet has no honor in his native town among his kin. I will not speak in Nazareth until the words I speak and works I do in other towns have won the faith of men. Until men know that God has Christed me to manifest eternal love. Goodwill to you, my kin. I bless you with a boundless love, and I bespeak for you abundant joy and happiness. He said no more, and all the people marveled much because he would not speak in Nazareth. Chapter 69. I just want to say, I looked at Jesus and was like, yo, this guy's ego, man. He thinks he's everything, but he does prove it. I mean, his DNA, his lineage, everything, it's proven. So it's like, he can talk that way. I just think that's hilarious. Okay, we're going to just move on to the next chapter. Chapter 70. Jesus and his disciples at a marriage feast in Cana. Jesus speaks on marriage. He turns water into wine. The people are amazed. In Cana, Galilee, there was a marriage feast, and Mary and her sister Miriam and Jesus and his 6 disciples were among the guests. The ruler of the feast had heard that Jesus was a master sent from God, and he requested him to speak. And Jesus said, there is no tie more sacred than the marriage tie. The chain that binds 2 souls in love is made in heaven, and man can never sever it in twain. The lower passions of the twain may cause a union of the twain, a union as when oil and water meet. And then a priest may forge a chain and bind the twain. This is not marriage genuine. It is a counterfeit. The twain are guilty of adultery. The priest is party to the crime. And that was all that Jesus said. As Jesus stood apart in silent thought, his mother came and said to him, the wine has failed. What shall we do? And Jesus said, pray, what is wine? It is but water with the flavoring of grapes. And what are grapes? They are but certain kinds of thought made manifest. And I can manifest that thought, and water will be wine. He called the servants, and he said to them, bring in 6 water pots of stone, a pot for each of these, my followers, and fill them with water to the brims. The servants brought the water pots and filled them to their brims. And Jesus, with a mighty thought, stirred up the ethers till they reached the manifest. And lo, the water blushed and turned to wine. The servants took the wine and gave it to the ruler of the feast, who called the bridegroom in and said to him, this wine is best of all. Most people, when they give a feast, bring in the best wine at first, but lo, you have reserved the best until last. And when the ruler and the guests were told that Jesus, by the power of thought, had turned the water into wine, they were amazed. They said, this man is more than man. He surely is the Christed one who prophets of the olden times declared would come. And many of the guests believed on him and gladly would have followed him. Chapter 70. So he's just over here manifesting with his thoughts and manifesting with his mouth. He's just speaking things into existence and making it known that it is possible. And he says it like it's so simple. He's just like, oh, yeah, well, wine is just grapes. I know how these elements work. And lo, he made it happen. There was something about this chapter, though, because I just wanted to... Okay, well, first, I do like that he said that The chain that binds two souls in love is made in heaven, and it can never be cut. But the lower passions may cause a union that is just like oil and water meeting, which means that they totally don't mesh. They don't, water and oil, they'll just repel all day, right? And the priest still binds them into this marriage. And this marriage is counterfeit, is what he pretty much said. And he just said that and let it be, which I think is hilarious. So in in verse 14, right? Jesus turned the water into wine. And then it says, the servants took the wine and gave it to the ruler of the feast, who called the bridegroom in and to him, this wine is best of all. Most people, when they give a feast, bring in the best wine at first, but lo, you have reserved the best until last. I believe, and this is something that some people disagree with, and some people believe it's a theory or whatever, but this verse kind of calls on Jesus being the bridegroom, right? I'm going to make sure the bridegroom is, sometimes I Google just to make sure, a man on his wedding day. Jesus was having his own wedding. Probably to Mary Magdalene. That is the theory. Mary and her sister Miriam were there. Jesus and his 6 disciples were there. So Jesus was the bridegroom. I'm pretty sure Mary was the wife, the bride. Mary and Miriam were there. Mother Mary and her sister Miriam were there. Joseph was not present because he had passed. And he's sitting here thinking to himself, this marriage is counterfeit. Or he's thinking that marriage is bound in love, and so it is chained in heaven. And I think that's so interesting that this is in here, because a lot of Christians perceive Jesus as never having been in love, never having been married, but it's like, if Jesus went through all these trials and tribulations that human beings go through in order to understand humans and their sins and their trials, you would definitely want to also include that he had to have experienced the trials of love. Like, oh my gosh, the dualities in love that we experience as human beings, there's no way that he missed out on that. And so I'm pretty sure this is there's another book, maybe a epic of Mary Magdalene, because this is his feast, this is his wedding, and we're just gonna move on because I think I have one more chapter for this section. And my computer is dying and I don't want to get up and charge it. So there's that. Okay, yeah, we're on the last chapter. Okay. Chapter 71. His 6 disciples and his mother go to Capernaum. Jesus teaches the people, revealing the difference between the kings of earth and the kings of heaven. The city of Capernaum was by the Sea of Galilee, and Peter's home was there. The homes of Andrew, John, and James were near. These men were fishermen and must return to tend their nets. And they prevailed on Jesus and his mother to accompany them. And soon with Philip and Nathanael, they were resting by the sea in Peter's home. The news spread through the city and along the shore that Judah's king had come, and multitudes drew near to press his hand. Sorry. And Jesus said, I cannot show the king unless you see with eyes of soul, because the kingdom of the king is the soul. And every soul is a kingdom. And every soul a kingdom is. There is a king for every man. The king is love. And when this love becomes the greatest power in life, it is the Christ. So Christ is king. And everyone may have this Christ dwell in his soul, as Christ dwells in my soul. The body is the temple of the king, and men may call a holy man a king. He who will cleanse his mortal form and make it pure, so pure that love and righteousness may dwell unsullied side by side within its walls, is king. The kings of earth are clothed in royal robes and sit in state that men may stand in awe of them. A king of heaven may wear a fisher's garb, may sit in mart of trade, may till the soil, or be a gleaner in the field, may be a slave in mortal chains, may be a judge, a criminal by men, may languish in a prison cell, may die upon a cross. Men seldom see what others truly are. The human senses sense what seems to be, and that which seems to be, and that which is, may be diverse in every way. The carnal man beholds the outer man, which is the temple of the king, and worships at his shrine. The man of God is pure in heart. He sees the king, he sees with eyes of soul. And when he rises to the plane of Christine consciousness, he knows that he himself is king, is love, is Christ, and so is son of God or daughter. You men of and women of Galilee, prepare to meet your king. And Jesus taught the people many lessons as he walked with them beside the sea. Chapter 71. Oh, this is so good. Oh my gosh. Don't y'all understand why they don't want this in the church? Because this is more than about just loving others. It is about loving and knowing the power within yourself that God gave you. Like, oh my gosh, y'all. If y'all don't embrace this power and turn this world and earth around, oh my gosh, the tools are here. They're literally within you. Okay. But yeah, I really like this chapter because Jesus, as Christ, is talking about how you have the power to have Christ consciousness, Christine consciousness within. And the same way it dwells in his own soul. That's what he said. Verse 7. And it doesn't matter who you are. He's describing all the different types of people during that time, from, merchants to criminals. They all have access to this Christ consciousness, as we all do. And talking about, we seldom see what others truly are. And we tend to only, what verse is this? Verse 13. We tend to only see through our senses. And that which we see is rarely what it actually is. And that is why some of these new age practices, some of these ways of seeing beyond the physical are very important in this time, because they allow us the opportunities to go inward and to see within ourselves the God, source, the Most High, Christ within us, and then being able to now see it within us, also reflecting that outwardly and seeing it within each other. And as the yogis say, the light in me sees, loves, and honors the light in you. And that is being shared here. The Christ in me sees the Christ in you. And so it is. I'm going to leave you all here. Please leave whatever you want in the comments. Please like the video if you resonate, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Peace.